Welcome back to Reliant Stadium in Houston, Texas, in what should be a dandy of a matchup between the Houston Texans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers in his 5th year, and his opposite number on the other side of the field is Gary Kubiak, the head man of the Houston Texans in his 6th year. And Dan, we talk about it all the time. This looks like a great matchup on paper, but they don't play it on paper. They play it on the field. Still, we have great expectations.
We sure do. I'll take a game of this caliber every single week. 2 good football teams at the start of the season. 2 teams that I thought are playoff material, and I still think that way.
The Houston Texans have won the toss, and they will receive. That is Daniel Manning, deep for Houston. He is the 4th best kick return man in the NFL, averaging 34.3 yards a return. Sean Sweezum getting set to kick it away for the Steelers, and we are underway at Reliant. Manning gonna run this one out, 3 yards deep. Penalty marker flies. He lost the football, and it looks to be covered by the Texans at the 22. There is a marker down at about the 10-yard line. Earl Mitchell made the recovery.
During the return, illegal block in the back. Return team number 52. Penalties half the distance to the goal line. First down, Houston.
Tim Dobbins is called for the penalty, and that'll back the Texans up. Matt Schaub is the Texans quarterback in his 8th season out of Virginia. 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's thrown at least 1 TD pass in 11 straight games.
And right now, all eyes in this stadium and anyone who follows the Texans, they're going to be on Arian Foster, trying to determine the quality of that hamstring and if it allows him to play at 100%.
He'll get the first carry of the day and is cut down at about the 7-yard line. Up front for Houston, one of the guys we'll watch today is left tackle Dwayne Brown, whose primary responsibility this afternoon will be Steelers linebacker James Harrison. The backs and the receivers, and the return to the starting lineup of last year's rushing champ Arian Foster, recovered now from a hamstring injury.
Well, Aaron Smith last year.
Pickup of 2 on the play makes it 2nd and 8, and there is number 23, Foster. 1,616 yards rushing to lead the league a year ago. Shaw with time throws complete across the 15 out to the 18 to the tight end Owen Daniels. Pittsburgh's defense ranks 2nd in the NFL. Ziggy Hood starts at defensive end for injured Brett Kiesel. A terrific set of linebackers includes James Harrison and his 51 career sacks, 2 of them this season. And the secondary has William Gay starting for injured Bryant McFadden at corner, and the ever-present Troy Polamalu, who had a fumble return for a touchdown last week at Indianapolis.
And the fumble caused by James Harrison.
First down, Houston out to their own 18. From the shotgun, pressure. And that pass is incomplete. Well covered on the play was Andre Johnson by Ike Taylor.
This Texans offense is so well-rounded, and that's really what I'm sure caused Dick LeBeau maybe to work an extra couple of hours this week, because they've got quality at every element of their game. They're solid on the offensive line. They've got high-quality running backs. Obviously, with Andre Johnson, their receiving core, and Owen Daniels at tight end. They really have no weakness anywhere on that offensive unit.
On 2nd and 10, this is Foster, and Foster up the middle across the 25 to about the 27-yard line. Ryan Clark making the stop after a 9-yard pickup.
Well, it's a zone blocking offense, and this is a very veteran offensive line. They get you and they run with you, and look at that hole. Ziggy Hood was late being able to cut back in. You see him there, 96. He grabs nothing but air, but Arian Foster, wow, he had to be pretty pleased at the size of the hole that his offensive line gave him on that one. Well done, guys up front.
3rd and 1, Foster for the first down. to the 29-yard line. And Arian Foster was so antsy to play a week ago in New Orleans. Gary Kubiak held him out just for a safety check.
Well, you talk to anyone on this Houston ball club, and they tell you that you have to tackle Arian Foster more than once. The first guy never gets him down. And you saw him right there run right through a tackle to convert and move the chains.
Foster gets a break. Ben Tate onto the field in his place for his first series, number 44.
And there goes Tate splitting all the way to the top of your screen as a wide receiver.
That pass is incomplete, intended for Owen Daniels. Lawrence Timmons knocked it down. It'll be 2nd and 10.
This linebacking core of the Steelers is so good, with Woodley and Harrison on the outside, and of course James Ferrier for 15 years in the middle. But the guy that is so good is Lawrence Timmons. He was their #1 draft pick back in 07. Timmons, week in, week out, is really the rock on that linebacking core.
Tate and Casey in the backfield. That's Casey in motion. Had a huge game at New Orleans a week ago. Tate. Big hole. 40, 45, 48-yard line. 19-yard pickup and another Houston first down.
Wow, and another great job by the offensive line up front. We've got an injured Steeler down on the ground, but look at again. Here we go, that zone blocking to the right, and take a look at the blocking up front. Eric Winston, a great seal to the inside. And that's twice now in the early going that the Steelers have been gashed up front.
That's Ryan Clark, the safety, being looked at. We'll take a timeout. 11:41 to play in the first. Ryan Clark walked off the field under his own power. Appears to be all right. He's on the sideline as Ryan Mundy replaces him in the secondary.
He looks to me like he's ready to come in the next play.
8th play of this Houston drive. Foster turns the corner. Midfield. Penalty marker down. And this is going to come back.
Holding. Offense, number 85. 10-yard penalty. Still first down.
That penalty on tight end Joel Dreesen. Our referee today is Cleet Blakeman.
Well, that's the second penalty for Gary Kubiak's bunch so far. And there is Ryan Clark back out on the field. The training staff tested his arm strength. He was doing a little twisting. He was kind of in an awkward position there when he made that tackle on Ben Tate.
So Houston now back to their own 39. It's 1st and 20. Schaub sets up the screen. Right side. Dreesen. And Dreesen back into Pittsburgh territory.
Boy, that was a good-looking setup on that screen. Matt Schaub does a good job of selling it initially. Take a look at a play-action fake. He then pivots back out, looks off, and then Dreesen gets. But look at the blocks out front. Chris Myers gets an outstanding block. Eric Winston out front. And again, when you got linemen that can get out and run and make two good blocks like that, yardage is easy to come by.
On 2nd and 6, it's Foster again to the 41. Close to a first down, but appears to be just shy of the marker.
Now, we saw Arian Foster come out of the game and get replaced by Ben Tate. That's by design. He's on a pitch count today. With that hamstring, the one thing Gary Kubiak doesn't want to do is give him the ball 30 or 35 times. He talked about, 24, maybe 25 would be ideal, but we've got to be careful not to overwork him on his way back.
He's in there on 3rd and short yardage. Foster to the outside, first down, and then some. Inside the 40 to the 37. And we have a marker.
Well, the Steelers sideline is asking for a holding call.
Holding. Offense, number 85. 10-yard penalty. Still third down.
Joel Dreesen.
Well, you know, Dick LeBeau was over there asking for the holding call, and you really can't turn down Dick LeBeau.
Well, Joel Dreesen now 2 holding calls within the span of about 90 seconds. There he is working right there on Polamalu, and yes, he's got him pretty good. He had the jersey, he had it grabbed. You could see the jersey move. And, you know, this is not an ideal situation to keep 3 penalties already in this game for Houston. This is a good enough defense without doing this to yourself.
3rd and 11. Although as they're lined up right now, it looks more like 3rd and 10. They have to move the football back a yard or so, don't they?
Well, either move the football or move the marker on the sidelines, yeah.
In any event, Shaw needs the 41 for a first down. Here comes Polamalu. Shaw with time over the middle. Got his man at the 35, inside to the 43. That's Owen Daniels for a first down.
And again, we talked about this offensive line. Yeah, there's been a couple of holding calls on the tight end, but they gave Matt Schaub a beautiful pocket. Just a great pocket. Take a look at this. The Steelers come with the blitz. Look how they pick it off. Dwayne Brown comes off and picks up Polamalu. But when a quarterback can step into the ball like that and has that kind of line of sight, that is just very well done again by this Texans offensive line.
18-yard pickup to the 33. Foster to the 27. That's a 6-yard gain. It'll be 2nd and 4. Gary Kubiak talked about how they needed to make important yardage early in the series.
Absolutely. And again, you know, first down is so important for everybody. But the Texans are one of the best first down teams in the NFL, and that's because you can run the ball. And when you get into those manageable situations, life is a whole lot easier. I'm impressed that they were able to overcome 2 holding calls already on this drive.
Foster. And they continue to pound away inside the 25 to the 23 for a 4-yard gain, and that's close to another first down.
Now there's a run by Arian Foster that I wonder that if he played more this year, that he maybe doesn't stay on his feet. But right there he heads upfield, and that wasn't much of a tackle that brought him down. And again, you know, this is a guy that's only played, I think, like 34 or 35 snaps coming into this game. If you're a starter, you've played 300 or more. So he's still feeling his way a little bit.
14th play of this drive. Ben Tate for maybe a yard to the 21.
James Harrison that time gets in there and gets around the ankles of Ben Tate. Now he gets up and he hobbles over to the sidelines.
Foster back onto the field to replace him as they look at Ben Tate on the sideline. Ben Roethlisberger wondering when he's going to get a chance to play.
And remember, the Texans have another quality running back in Derek Ward, but he's inactive again today. He's got a high ankle sprain.
Schaub in the flat to Foster. Shakes a tackle. Out of bounds inside the 15-yard line. Red zone time when we come back. But first to New York, James Brown and Shannon Sharp.
Greg and Dan, Cowboys didn't score a touchdown in last week's victory over Washington.
Off of Matthew Stafford, INT. Dallas strikes first, JB, 25 yards. Dez Bryant climbs the ladder. 7-0 early, Cowboys.
Back to Greg and Dan.
All right, guys, thank you. And so the first time this week that the Houston Texans get into the red zone, which was all of their problems in New Orleans last week.
Well, 5 touchdowns out of 16 trips is pretty much unacceptable. The 16 trips into the red zone are great.
Shot. Gonna run for it. Slides down at the 11, but that's enough for a first down.
We saw William Gay that time come in and go sailing over the top of Matt Schaub. Schaub's going to go into the slide, but you can't expect William Gay to just disappear. He did a pretty good job of going over the top of Matt Schaub and staying away from the temptation of an official to throw a flag.
Gary Kubiak pointed out the Texans were a top 5 red zone offense last year, and their performance last week in New Orleans was unacceptable. This is Foster. Foster to the 6.
Well, the best red zone teams are teams that can run the football. And that, even though it's becoming a passing league, being able to run the football in the red zone is still critical. And right there is a wonderful example of it. When you can knock off 6 yards on first down in the red zone, life is pretty smooth for an offense.
2nd and 4. Houston can get a first down without scoring a touchdown. Foster to the goal line. No touchdown, but it'll be enough for a 1st and goal.
Man, I don't want to just give these guys so much praise, but again, this game right now is being controlled by the offensive line and the blocking backs and the tight ends by the Texans. You know, just take a look at this. That zone scheme, and right now the Steelers' front wall is playing this game on their heels.
Dan, we are coming up on 4 minutes to play in the first quarter. The Steelers haven't touched the football yet.
Man, you dream about starting a game like this.
1st and goal. Play fake. All alone in the end zone. Touchdown, Owen Daniels. Well, that's what running the football will do for you.
Your confidence level has to be sky high now for the Houston Texans. And again, the play action means everything when you can effectively run the football. And totally disregarded by the Steelers, a blown coverage. But a holding call, a block in the back rather, on the opening kickoff, and they overcome 2 holding calls, putting them in long yardage situations, and they still stuff it down the Steelers' throat.
The NFL's leading scorer, Neil Rackers, for the extra point. It is good. 19 plays, 95 yards, 10 minutes and 55 seconds off the clock. 7-0 Houston.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. FedEx. FedEx does more than shipping. FedEx, solutions that matter. And by Ford. Drive one.
Nice shot of Reliant Stadium from the outside as we look on now. Pittsburgh about to get their hands on the ball for the first time, and there's the drive we detailed to you. 10 minutes, 55 seconds, the longest in franchise history.
And keep in mind, they did that without involving Andre Johnson, their best offensive player.
Antonio Brown is deep for the kickoff. Won't get a chance to return this one as it sails over the end line. And Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers will start from their own 20-yard line. 4:05 to play in the first quarter. Minute 55-second drive, a record. So is the fact that it went 19 plays.
Well, how about the fact that the drive covered 115 yards? The field's only 100 yards long. Because of the penalties, that's how many yards they actually get credit for. But they overcame those penalties.
So with 4:05 to play in the first quarter, Steelers get their first shot on offense. Penalty markers fly as Mendenhall is stuffed short of the line of scrimmage.
Well, there was movement on the Houston defensive line. Mario might have been into the neutral zone.
Offside. Defense, number 90. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
It is who the penalty is on. Meanwhile, Ben Roethlisberger, the Steeler quarterback, although Pittsburgh's 2-1, Ben throwing interceptions, he's giving up fumbles, and knows he has to be better than he has been this early part of the season. 1st and 5, and this is Mendenhall, and Mendenhall across the 30 to the 31-yard line for a first down. Injuries have made a mess of the offensive line. Trey Essex and Ramon Foster plugged in today. Marquise Pouncey, the anchor at center in only his second NFL season. And off to a huge start this season, wide receiver Mike Wallace with 21 catches, 377 yards, and a pair of touchdowns.
And there's Marcus Gilbert, the rookie, the second-round draft choice, who's got the start at right tackle. Remember, that was supposed to be veteran Willie Colon making a comeback. He didn't even make it through the first game.
Roethlisberger throws near side to Wallace, breaks a tackle. Still on his feet. And into Houston territory to the 47-yard line, a 22-yard pickup.
Well, Wade Phillips, the defensive coordinator of the Texans, has got to be out of his mind with this tackling. First, Jonathan Joseph misses. Manning misses. J.J. Watt can't pull him down.
The play. Unsportsmanlike conduct, taunting. Offense, number 17. 15-yard penalty.
So after that 22-yard play, Mike Wallace called for a taunting penalty.
Boy, that spoils a great effort by Mike Wallace. He gets up and he starts woofing to the Texans sideline. And again, that's the kind of behavior.
That's not smart football.
Yeah, I don't know what he said, but that's just not, there's no need for that. He's young, he's excitable, but he just negated a great effort of his own.
So first down from the 38. Quick pass, far side. That's complete to Emmanuel Sanders, and Sanders is brought down at the 49. The Texans rookie defensive end, J.J. Watt, already proving he's an impact player with a sack, a fumble recovery, and a blocked field goal in his first 3 NFL games. Mario Williams has a pair of sacks and appears to have shaken off what could have been a serious knee injury last week in New Orleans. In the secondary, Kareem Jackson out with a knee injury. 6th-year cornerback Jason Allen steps in. And there is Mario, number 90. First down now, Pittsburgh at their own 48. Roethlisberger, quick pass, incomplete. D'Amico Ryans was there defending.
Well, D'Amico Ryans means so much to this Houston team. He went out last year, got injured in their 6th game, tore his Achilles. The team was 4-2 after that win, and as everyone down here knows, they went 2-8 with him out of the lineup, and having him back, he is the captain and the emotional leader of this Texans defense.
Told us yesterday he's changed his mind about the 3-4. He likes it.
Yeah, he's learned to love it.
Roethlisberger trying to set up a screen that wasn't there.
Well, and Brian Cushing came in on a blitz, and he was untouched. And again, Brian Cushing, one of those guys that has moved inside. He played outside last year. He was an edge player, and now in this 3-4, Phillips has moved him inside. And Brian Cushing has become such a complete player that he actually stays on the field in both nickel and even when they go to dime with 6 DBs, he's the only linebacker that stays in.
The 09 NFL Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. Noelle Moore in the backfield. 3rd and 10. Roethlisberger goes down. Loose ball.
Unbelievable. The 5th fumble that Ben Roethlisberger has lost so far this season.
Connor Barwin appeared to be the first to hit it.
Antonio Smith is really applying a lot of pressure.
Now we have a penalty marker in the middle of the field.
During the play, illegal contact, defense.
Whoa.
5-yard penalty from the previous spot. Automatic first down.
That changes that. Take that fumble off the score sheet. It never happened. Well, so far this game, the Houston Texans have been on a penalty spree. They were able to overcome them on offense, but this is a habit that they better break.
Referee Clete Blakeman did not designate who committed the foul. Nevertheless, it's a first down at the 47. This is Mendenhall. May have lost about a half a yard to a yard on the play.
Well, this running game for Pittsburgh is something that they would desperately like to get untracked, but I think the Pittsburgh coaching staff has come to grips with this offensive line being in such a state of flux that, you know, it's going to be unrealistic to think that they can just jam the football down somebody's throat at the clip of 120 or 130 yards a game. I think they've lowered their expectations, and they're going to pick their places.
Roethlisberger hit as he let it go, and it's incomplete.
Ben had no idea that the blitz was coming from his blind side, and man, did he get cracked. Take a look at this. Coming in from his left, totally untouched, is Daniel Manning. And Ben, I'm sorry, that is a big owie. He has no clue that that is coming, and Manning gets there a nanosecond after he releases the ball.
I asked Roethlisberger yesterday if with all these changes on the offensive line, if he kind of peeks to make sure everyone's doing their job. He says you don't get a chance to do that.
No, Ben's not a peeker.
3rd and 10.
That doesn't work.
Roethlisberger going down again.
Well, this time Trey Essex, his left tackle, gives up a soft corner. This is just winning your one-on-one matchup. Take a look at it. Connor Barwin, number 98 there on the left side of your screen. See how he gets around Essex? And Roethlisberger doesn't get a chance to even set up and scan downfield.
Ben better start peeking. Jacoby Jones is deep. High floater. Lets it bounce inside the 10, and it's going to be down at about the 5-yard line. So once again, Houston starts deep in its own territory. Now they lead it 7-0. Greg Gumbel, Dan Deerdorf back in Houston. 15 seconds remain in a first quarter. To say that the Texans have dominated it would be putting it mildly. Last drive started from the 5. This one starts from the 6. This is Foster. And that should run out the first quarter. Houston Texans, if they were looking to make a statement, they did that. We've played one at Reliant Stadium. It's the Houston Texans 7, the Pittsburgh Steelers nothing. We're back after this. You're watching the NFL on CBS. Welcome back to Houston for the start of the second quarter. Those are impressive numbers for one period of play for the Houston Texans.
Yes, they are. Pittsburgh has 6 yards rushing. The Texans have 66.
2nd and 7. Shaw with time over the middle. That's complete to Owen Daniels. There's a penalty marker down inside the 5.
It's coming back.
Illegal use of hands to the face. Offense, number 55. Penalties half the distance to the goal line. Still 2nd down.
Center Chris Myers, guilty of the flag.
All right, let's take a look at it on the right side of the screen. Oh, there it is right there. Chris Myers has his hand right in the face mask of Casey Hampton. And this is mind-numbing how many penalties the Texans are committing early in this game.
Right now, it's fair to say that the Texans are keeping the Steelers in this game.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. 6 already, and we're barely into the second quarter, but another big play negated.
Second and 12. Foster. Still on his feet. Breaks outside. Out of bounds close to the 25-yard line. A 20-yard gain and a first down.
Well, when you get a running back stalemated like that at the line of scrimmage, where is the follow-up? Here comes Troy Polamalu, and what an unbelievable hop to the right by Arian Foster that makes Polamalu miss. Look at this right here. Look at that lateral move to his right. That is extraordinary. And then he keeps his balance, and of course Polamalu had contain on that side. When he's out of the way, it's an open field.
Chris Agbanaya is into the backfield. Shaw to throw. Time. Throwing. Off the fingertips of Owen Daniels. Let's check in once again with our NFL Today studios in New York at JB and Shannon.
Greg and Dan atoning for a pick thrown earlier. Vic, Houdini in the pocket.
Michael Vick is the only quarterback in the history of the NFL that could have got out of that play and done this. Throw a 16-yard touchdown to Clay Harbor, puts them up early, 7-0.
Wow is all I can say. Maybe that's why it's difficult to officiate him.
Yes.
Back to Greg and Dan.
You know, I've seen JB over a steak dinner and he says, wow. So, you know, you just got to take these things in stride.
Well, Michael Vick will bring out a few wows.
Here's Foster. And Foster out across the 25 to the 27-yard line. Hey, manage all of your CBS Sports Fantasy Football teams on your mobile device. Download the free app today at cbssports.com/mobile. We are told by the Texans that Ben Tate has suffered a groin injury and his return is questionable.
That is a problem. Because, again, Arian Foster is going to have to do more than I believe the Texans coaching staff wanted him to do coming into today.
Already 88 yards rushing for the Texans today. 3rd and 6. Shaw going to throw for it, far side of the field. The catch is made. First catch of the day by Andre Johnson, and it's good for a first down.
Well, it's quite a pat on the back for the Texans that they've accomplished what they have so far without the involvement of number 80. But again, look at that. Look at the great move. Here comes Troy Polamalu. He wraps him up at the end. But again, a great route run by Johnson. He knew where the sticks were. He knew how far he had to go. And players' helmets these days are coming off mighty easily. Some of these guys need to tighten them up.
This is Foster diving across the 35 to the 37-yard line. You know, when we were talking with Foster, Dan, we watched him work out prior to the game last week in New Orleans, and he was running well, but you said that he wasn't cutting at all. But then he said he put himself through all the rigors this week in practice.
He said he went. I said, did you really push it? And he said, yeah, 100% every day. He said, I needed to know. I needed to know if it was going to give out on me.
Foster takes a break. Agbanaya again into the lineup on 2nd and 8.
And that wasn't the plan for the Texans.
Shaw throws far side of the field, and that is complete to Johnson. And Johnson diving forward to about the 42.
Well, after a one-play breather, Arian Foster is coming back in. Arian Foster is the best pass blocker of the Texans' backs. He's the best runner, and they really suffer if he's not in there. But with, you know, if they had Derek Ward or Ben Tate at their disposal, you're getting some guys who've seen a few things in there, even though Tate's just in his 2nd year. This is going to be interesting to see how Arian Foster holds up as this game goes on.
Houston 4 out of 4 on 3rd down so far today. 3rd and 3 now. Foster going to come up short of the first down. Aaron Smith making the play.
What a luxury for the Steelers to have Aaron Smith back. Well, you know, last year he had the tricep surgery, and he is such a big part of everything that happens up front for their 3-4 defense. And with Brett Kiesel out today, all the more pressure on guys like Smith. He has been solid since the day he came in this league 13 years ago.
Brett Hartman, the punter, he of 3 special teams tackles on the season. Kicks it away to Antonio Brown. Brown, fair catch ball for and made it the 5-yard line. So the Steelers will start in a hole after a 52-yard punt. 7-0 Houston. Hey, aerial coverage of today's game is provided by MetLife. Nice shot overhead at Reliant Stadium.
I'm not sure about Antonio Brown fair catching that football at basically the 5-yard line. I guess closer to the 6.
From the 5-yard line, this is Rashard Mendenhall. Can't get outside. May have lost a yard on the play. Jason Allen coming up to make the stop.
Well, that is not Rashard Mendenhall's strength, bouncing it to the outside. And again, there just wasn't much there. You know, the new rules, the way they've, changed in practicing now, mostly in shorts and without pads, it's really hard to work on the running game. And, when you got a new line with new people in it, it's a bit of a handicap.
Mendenhall again. This time he gets outside and is out to about the 14-yard line where Brian Cushing makes the stop.
Well, in the first quarter, Ben Roethlisberger was having quite a first half. Luckily, this fumble right here didn't count because of a penalty. He gets buried by Daniel Manning, and then Connor Barwin comes around and brings him down to the ground again. And I'm sure Ben is hoping that the next 3 quarters are a little milder than the first.
Isaac Redmond into the backfield on 3rd and 2. Out here, complete at the 15-yard line to Heath Miller, and he won't have enough for the first down.
Jonathan Joseph, what a great read, and he's starting to pay some dividends. This pickup from Cincinnati. Heath Miller never even got a chance to turn his hips or his head upfield.
Well, a week ago, people were wondering around here what happened to that vaunted Wade Phillips defense. But it's looking good so far today. Jacoby Jones. Penalty marker flies as he goes down at the 42.
Is this going to be another penalty on the Texans? They might be going for the gold. They're going for records here.
During the return, holding. Return team number 26. 10-yard penalty from the end of the run. First down, Houston.
And another penalty to Gary Kubiak's team. It'll back them up. We'll continue. 8:14 to play in the first half. We remind you, you can join the NFL's A Crucial Catch campaign in the fight against breast cancer. Visit NFL.com/auction to bid on authentic game-worn NFL pink products. All proceeds benefit the American Cancer Society. On first down, Arian Foster. And Foster out across the 35 to about the 38-yard line.
Well, Arian Foster is off to a good start. The NFL rushing leader of a year ago. He's been the beneficiary of some outstanding blocking. You don't see those kind of holes against this Steeler defense. And that was just a remarkable individual effort to make Troy Polamalu miss. And again, a good solid 6 yards on first down.
75 yards rushing on the day for Foster. Looking for more. To the 40. Time for another update from New York. JB and SS.
Greg and Dan, Devin Hester, pretty good.
He's tied with Eric Metcalf for the most punt returns in NFL history with 10. But after this one, JB, he's not tied anymore, JB. It's official. Devin Hester is the greatest return man in NFL history. 69 yards, tumbling to the end zone, 24-10. The Bears.
Hey, Greg, my wow right now is reserved for the organic chicken that I'm eating. Back to Greg Gumbel and Dan Deerdorf.
I know your wows, JB. Don't even try to slide. 3rd and 3. Short drop for Shaw. Throws complete to midfield to Andre Johnson. First down.
Well, Andre Johnson brings such physicality to the wide receiving position. But again, this is nothing more than a simple little out pattern. Here's James Harrison and Dwayne Brown. Dwayne Brown said the first game he ever started in the NFL was against James Harrison at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. And in his own words, he said, he abused me.
It wasn't pretty.
No.
Shaw under pressure got rid of it, complete to Johnson, and Johnston.
Andre Johnson, untouched, goes to the ground. Oh, Lord. And that sums it up.
His teammates in a circle around him on the field. Looked like it just gave out.
He just completely untouched, and he'd already planted and made his cut upfield. I'm not even sure which. Well, he grabs his right leg.
I think it's the right knee.
He grabs his right.
4 catches for 36 yards on the day.
And this is where every player on the Houston Texans right now has got to step up.
We'll take a break and come back after this. Andre Johnson walking slowly to the locker room. Meanwhile, back in play, setting up the screen to James Casey on the far side of the field. Casey to the 30. Lost the football.
Oh, did Timmy? Oh, he got it back. James Casey, Mr. Do Everything for the Texans. And Andre Johnson is heading into the locker room. At least he's walking, but again, good play action. It works because of how well they've been running the ball. Great block outside by Dwayne Brown. Good hustle by the big man getting outside. And Casey's got to finish that thing without letting that ball get away from his body so much. Troy Polamalu spins him around midair.
And now James Harrison of the Steelers is down on the far side of the field.
You're not going to jump over Polamalu. He's too athletic. He'll go right up. He'll rise right up with you. There comes James Harrison in at the very end of the play. He looked okay there. Well, right now, for this Texans offense, 2 big question marks. Who can step up and replace Andre Johnson? And secondly, Arian Foster already has 16 carries. We'll be right back.
They look at James Harrison on the sideline. Meanwhile, 2nd and 2 for Shaw and the Texans. And this is Foster for a first down.
They've been looking at James Harrison. He's having a little problem with his right eye. Look at this collision. Dwayne Brown's helmet right there, right into the face mask of James Harrison, who does a good job of fighting off the block and getting downfield. But when they were working with him on the sideline, he's having difficulty with his right eye. That was a violent collision that Harrison had with Brown's helmet.
2 superstars out of the game within 43 seconds of each other. Andre Johnson and then James Harrison. First down. Foster. Running room. Inside the 20. To the 17. 9 more yards for Foster. He's up to 89 on the day.
But I think the big number is that's his 18th carry. And again, he's getting great blocking for the large part up front. He has enjoyed some really ample creases in this Pittsburgh defense. And let's be realistic, folks. Nobody runs consistently against the Pittsburgh defense. It's hard to do. At least over the years, it's been hard.
Foster again. got the first down. You know, when we talked to Gary Kubiak yesterday, he says it's hard to prepare for a Dick LeBeau defense because you come up on Sunday and it's not uncommon to say, well, what is this? But all of a sudden, it's Houston that's creating the problem for the Pittsburgh defense.
Well, it's the luxury of having a good offensive line. And it's about time people around the National Football League figured out that this offensive line of the Houston Texans is the real deal. If they're not the best line in football, they're awfully close to it. They're on a short list of 2 or 3.
Another red zone trip for the Houston Texans. This is Akbanaya. Inside the 10 to about the 7.
Again, a great surge up front. It's just a good, solid push, nothing fancy. And Akbanaya, a guy just brought up from the practice squad when they released Steve Slayton, is going to have to do some work today. Again, look at this surge up front. See how they get on a guy and they run him? And Akbanaya, 10 days ago was a practice squad guy. Steve Slayton's released, and he's going to have to come up big today because Arian Foster already with 19 carries.
2nd and 6. Shaw right over the middle, and it's incomplete at the 5 to Kevin Walter.
Boy, he had Walter wide open too. A good design, but throwing off his back foot, and he had to try to throw it around Lamar Woodley, number 56, who was in his face. And that just didn't get there.
118 yards rushing already for the Houston Texans today against a defense.
Well, it's been, so far they've been giving up right around 100 a game. But, last year they only gave up 60-something a game.
3rd and 6. Shaw on the move. Throwing off the fingertips of Foster. And that'll bring the field goal unit on.
Well, Arian Foster ends up in motion. And there he is right there, and he's so wide open. It's a blown coverage. But by the time Matt Schaub, who has to scramble out of there, finds him, it's just too late. Ike Taylor's able to get back into it, and it's an overthrow. But that was a real break for the Steelers defense because they disregarded and lost track of Foster.
Neil Rackers from 25 yards out. That's 63 straight field goals from 45 yards or less for Mr. Rackers. 10-0 Texans. A team that has been completely dominated by the Houston Texans, but it's only a 10-point lead.
A good look there. Look at that rushing differential. It's been more than a balanced attack for Houston. 23 rushes, 15 passes. Pittsburgh needs to possess the football. They just need to keep it and get a couple first downs.
Antonio Brown deep. This one will be taken by Isaac Redmond inside 5. And he's back to the 20-yard line before he is knocked down. Well done by you, one of the great surfers of all time.
Yeah, I could hang 10 in my dreams.
So it has been the Pittsburgh offense that's been throttled today by this Houston defense. Roethlisberger, crossing counter, tipped in the air. Oh, did he catch that? Or
did Ed end up going back to Miller?
It's unbelievable. Flat on his back, and the ball came right back to him for the completion.
All right, it's well behind Miller. Bounces off the helmet of Brian Cushing, off his left hand, and goes right to Miller.
And we get a whistle, and 2-minute warning.
Warning.
Ben Roethlisberger thought he could get a play off in time, didn't quite get there. We'll be back. Welcome back, 2nd and 3. Full 2 minutes to play.
Full dime defense here for Houston, 6 DBs.
Here comes the blitz. Quick pass, incomplete. Number 84, Antonio Brown, wasn't looking.
No, he didn't recognize the blitz.
Hey, the Sprint halftime report coming up. JB, Dan, Shannon, Boomer, and the coach for all the latest NFL scores and highlights coming up on the Sprint halftime report.
The Antonio Brown didn't recognize the blitz, even though Houston, because of Ben's snap count, declared themselves and showed it early. That's a little disappointing.
Steelers have not converted a third down yet today. This is their third opportunity. Roethlisberger with time, this time going to go deep, crossing the field, inside the 40, complete to Mike Wallace, first down. 40 yards on the play.
Well, this is Mike Wallace and his speed. Take a look at this. Daniel Manning, number 38, he's got the coverage, but he just can't stick with it. By the time Manning he's in a chase position all the way. If you're parallel with Mike Wallace, you're already behind. Well, you look at that, 49 on their first 13. If the Steelers have a 40-yard play, it is better than an educated guess that Mike Wallace was involved.
A minute 48 to play in the first half. Pittsburgh down to 2 timeouts. Roethlisberger throwing, complete to Wallace. Wallace inside the 30 to about the 27. Brian Cushing with the tackle.
Ben saving his 2 remaining timeouts. Trying to get this thing moving.
Roethlisberger throws this side, and that's complete to about the 20-yard line. Hugh Miller, the tight end.
But he landed inbounds.
But now we get a timeout called by the Steelers. Their second timeout used here in the first half. And we have a minute and 11 on the clock.
Well, Wade Phillips knows that you got to try to keep Mike Wallace from doing more than his fair share of damage. This was week 2 against the Seahawks. That was for 53 yards. Then last week, how about that? 81 yards against the cover 2. And here he comes for 40 late in the second quarter here against the Texans. And Mike Wallace is, and you talk to anybody on the Steelers, and, used to be just a guy that would run by in straight lines, but they'll, to a man, start talking to him about how he has become sophisticated in his route running, his understanding of what he has to do, but not only that, but what other people are doing as well. It's becoming a football player, not just a fast guy.
From the 20-yard line. This is Morelli. Moore inside the 10. It'll be first and goal for the Steelers, and we get a flag. This one appears to be against Pittsburgh.
Marquise Pouncey got down there late. I don't know if he hit somebody.
After the play, personal foul, late hit, unnecessary roughness, offense, number 53. The 15-yard
That's exactly who it is.
Run. It will be a first down for Pittsburgh.
I mean, Marquise Pouncey, he hustles, he can run. For an offensive lineman, especially a center, he can cover some ground. And he's trying to get down there to help make a block, and he gets called for a personal foul.
From just outside the 20-yard line, first down. 62 seconds to play in the first half. Roethlisberger. Incomplete. Doesn't connect with Antonio Brown. Jason Allen covering.
Well, it had been the Texans up to this point that had really been making their job harder than it needed to be with penalties. That we'll see how this finishes out in the next 58 seconds. But wow, the Steelers were in great position before that Pouncey penalty.
Roethlisberger going to the end zone and overthrew it. Antonio Brown again, 3rd and 10.
Well, Antonio Brown running the corner pattern, and Ben is not happy with himself. Because take a look at this. He runs a good stem, and there he goes to the corner, and he is open. He is there. Nolan is not in a position to defend the football. And would Ben like another shot at that?
And you and I have talked this week about what constitutes open in the NFL. That was wide open.
That was very open.
3rd and 10.
Boy, the Steeler tackles are a long way from the football.
Quick pass. That's complete, but short of a first down. Complete to Wallace, but Daniel Manning made the stop. And they're going to go for it.
And Ben is really trying to get up to the line in a hurry here. Yeah, he's going to try to draw him offside. I can't believe they're not going to take 3 points. Yeah, that's...
Well, Roethlisberger has no one behind him in the backfield, and he's not going to draw them off, so he's going to take his 3rd and final timeout.
Good discipline by the Houston defense, and a smart play by Ben.
Worth the shot.
Yeah, darn right it's worth the shot.
Pittsburgh uses its 3rd and final timeout to stop the clock with 7 seconds to play.
I think if this was the Steeler running game of old, maybe you entertained the thought. But in this situation, as lopsided as the yardage has been this half, if you can make it a 10-3 ball game at halftime, Mike Tomlin, you take it and you run.
I think we can say right now, Dan, that Pittsburgh goes into the locker room trailing 10-3. They consider themselves extremely fortunate.
I agree. And everyone who follows these Texans will be very uneasy approaching this second half, knowing some of the problems this team has had in the past of closing the deal.
Sean Sweezer from 30 yards out to get the Steelers on the board. Blocked. Picked up. Jonathan Joseph going to take it the other way for a touchdown.
There's a flag. There's a flag back at the 33. I think they're bringing this back.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, wow. Well, how many penalties can the Texans commit? Now they're having a conference.
Houston Texans have never had a blocked field goal return for a touchdown in their franchise history.
Well, that's whether they're going to have one is up in the air right now.
During the return, illegal block in the back on the defense. That penalty will not be enforced by rule is declined. The quarter is not extended and there is no score. This is the end of the first half.
You know, that has to go down as one of the weird penalties of all time. Why would you block anyone in the back from that far back?
Well, let's see if we could see it. Manning, there it is.
There it is, right in the middle of the field.
It's Daniel Manning. Daniel Manning.
Who blocked the field goal.
Why? Why would you do that?
It nullifies a 61-yard return, and that was the block, and it was totally useless.
It was 15 yards It was 15 yards behind Jonathan Joseph running with the ball.
That's the end of the first half. 10-0 Houston. Back with the Sprint halftime report after this message and the word from your local station. Woo. Welcome back to Reliant Stadium in Houston, everyone. At halftime, the Texans leading the Pittsburgh Steelers by a score of 10-0. Greg Gumbel along with Dan Deerdorf. If we here in the booth are still shaking our heads at the way the first half ended, can you imagine how Gary Kubiak is feeling?
No, I can't imagine. It was a blocked field. Daniel Manning is number 38, second from the left. He blocks the kick. But then as Jonathan Joseph picks it up, he comes over and hits Daniel Sepulveda, the punter, who was the holder on that play, who couldn't have caught Jonathan Joseph ever. I misspoke earlier when I said it was 15 yards behind the play. It was 3 or 4, but Sepulveda was never going to catch Jonathan Joseph, and that just took a touchdown right off the board.
Very, very strange indeed. Let's take a look now at the NFL Mobile Recap presented by Verizon.
Well, it's all about teamwork. The Texans had been running the ball. Arian Foster had a great first half, and so they set it up with play action, a touchdown to Owen Daniels. Excellent teamwork.
Meanwhile, Andre Johnson, who left the game with an injury in the first half, has not been heard from. We have not heard yet an update on his health. So he's out of the game until further notice. And the second half is underway. Antonio Brown is deep. And it's picked off by Brown at the 1-yard line. To the outside and out of bounds just at the 25-yard line.
Well, Gary Kubiak was riding an emotional roller coaster the last play of the first half. Check this out. Oh, and then he just saw the flag. He just spotted the flag. He's screaming at the officials that they shouldn't have thrown it. I think it was pretty obvious that Daniel Manning did hit Sepulveda and knock him to the ground by hitting him in the back. It was a legitimate call.
So the Steelers find themselves down by only 10 as they start from their own 26. Roethlisberger, quick pass over the middle across the 30 to the 32 to the tight end, David Johnson.
So a 19-play drive to start the ball game. Andre Johnson, untouched, leaves the game in the second quarter. We still are waiting to hear exactly his injury. And then on the last play of the first half, a touchdown is called back, and the Texans and their penalties in the first half. I know it's great to be leading 10-0. I'll guarantee this is one uneasy crowd here. It could have been so much more.
On 2nd and 4, this is Mendenhall, and Mendenhall gets right to the first down marker at the 36-yard line.
If you didn't see the Andre Johnson injury, he catches a pass from Matt Schaub, and he just turns upfield. As he turns upfield, right there, he goes to the ground, and he was holding. He immediately goes and clutches right behind his right knee. Now, if there's any good news here, he did walk off the field, and then from the bench, he walked into the locker room, and we haven't seen nor heard from him since.
As soon as we hear anything, we will pass it on to you. Meanwhile, Steeler first down at their own 36-yard line. Play fake. Roethlisberger tossed it incomplete in the backfield.
Yeah. Now, he was smart enough to realize that he had Rashard Mendenhall on the ground, and by just flicking it to him, he's able to avoid the sack. But look how strong he is. Brian Cushing is just hanging on him, and Ben has such good awareness. You know, if that was one of his linemen on the ground, that would have been ground. But he had Mendenhall there. That's just a smart, heady play by Big Ben.
2nd and 10.
And Brian Cushing found out that this guy doesn't go down easily.
On the move, hit from behind, goes down, courtesy of Mario Williams.
And again, the pressure is Ben rolls out to his left, and in doing so, turns his back on Mario Williams, who's coming in from the backside. Now, initially, it's a very good job of blocking by Gilbert. But the reality is when Ben leaves the pocket, Gilbert ran Mario Williams out and around the pocket, but the pocket ended up moving when Ben moved. Roethlisberger was lucky to hold on to that football.
Once again, Williams lines up on this side of the field. Third sack of the season for Mario. Roethlisberger breaks free over the middle at midfield. That is complete to Hines Ward. 19 yards and a first down.
Well, imagine in a critical situation, Ben Roethlisberger feeling comfortable trying to find Hines Ward. And he just runs, he runs into this Houston zone and sits down. And before Daniel Manning, the safety, is able to come up and make a play. That's smart pattern. Good job by Hines Ward of sitting down and becoming a target.
From the Houston 49. Mendenhall probably lost a yard. Sean Cody was the first to hit him. You know, Dan, one of the honorary captains at the coin toss today was Janice McNair, the wife of the late Steve McNair. And it reminds me that Steve McNair, among his coaches in the NFL, was Mike Heimerdinger.
And Mike Heimerdinger lost his battle with cancer. And again, the NFL coaching fraternity for one, but players and everyone involved with the league extends our condolences to the Heimerdinger family. Mike was a good man.
Second and 10, movement up front. And it'll be a false start. Marcus Gilbert looked like the guilty party.
False start. Offense, number 77. 5-yard penalty. Still second down.
Well, Hines Ward continues to move up the charts.
That's a pretty good player he passed. He's bracketed by Hall of Famers there with Michael Irvin at 19, and he just passed Don Maynard.
We've been told from the sideline, Andre Johnson, right hamstring injury, his return is questionable. Roethlisberger slant, that's complete. Antonio Brown twists his way close to the 45-yard line.
You know, Mike Tomlin told us last year that he had a couple of special kids in Antonio Brown and Emmanuel Sanders, and they are now in their second year. They're still learning what this league is all about. But this young receiving core of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I kind of exclude Hines Ward from that, but you know, with Brown and Sanders and Wallace, they have a chance to be truly special.
3rd and 6. Roethlisberger throwing far side of the field, and that catch is made by Antonio Brown for the first down.
And that's the way you go up, and that's the way you compete for the football. That is, watch this. Look how he sells going deep against Jason Allen. And even though Allen is very physical, he's got his arm and everything else. Look how he goes up, focuses on that football, makes a hands catch, and is able to control it. That was really nicely done by Antonio Brown.
Got the first down by a yard. The line of scrimmage is now the Houston 38. Roethlisberger, 4 out of 5 for 41 yards throwing on this drive. Play clock down to 2, and he has to call a timeout. Steelers burn a timeout. We'll take a break. 9:38 to play in the third. Welcome back to Houston. 9:38 to play in the third quarter. First down.
Honey, I'll be home as soon as the game's over, I promise.
Ready the liquid soap. From the 38-yard line. Roethlisberger down the sideline, back shoulder, got his man, Antonio Brown.
Well, that's the second time in a row now that it's Antonio Brown working against Jason Allen. Kareem Jackson, normally the starter at corner, but Jason Allen gets the start today with Jackson out. That's just a fantastic throw by Roethlisberger and a good adjustment by Antonio Brown.
23-yard pickup to the 15.
That shows a lot of work between those two to run that pattern.
Mendenhall to the 11, where J.J. Watt makes the stop.
Well, the Steelers have had more than a couple runs on first down that pretty much got stoned, and that's a situation when then down in the red zone, that's a good solid 4 yards on first down. That lets Bruce Arians calling the plays over there breathe a little easier.
Pittsburgh looking at a little more respectable until the yardage department. 2nd and 6. Mendenhall. Maybe about a half a yard to a yard. Ryan Cushing with another big stop.
And that's just indicative of the type of troubles that this Steelers running game has been having. And, Rashard Mendenhall takes a lot of the blame, but when you have an offensive line that has no continuity at all, none whatsoever, it's tough to ask for a whole lot. You have to demand it. That's what coaches do, but you understand a little bit why it doesn't work.
Roethlisberger spreads the field on 3rd and 5. Under pressure. Has the first down inside the 5. It'll be 1st and goal.
Big Ben has such awareness of what is going on around him on the field. And look at this mobility for such a big guy. Right there, is that J.J. Watt, the rookie? Well, the rookie learned a lesson. Do not be confused by how big this guy is. Look how he makes Watt overrun him. Look at that. I mean, that's just fantastic. That is just, and Watt found out that Roethlisberger, he moves like a much smaller guy.
On 1st and goal, Mendenhall to the end zone for the touchdown.
Well, this time, a 3 tight end formation, and they run to power. This looks like the old Green Bay sweep, getting everybody out front, the toss play. The Texans weren't prepared for it. Great call by Bruce Arians, and good power football.
Steelers playing 3 of their first 4 games of this season on the road, but they travel fans better than anyone in the National Football League. And they're well represented in the house today. The extra point is good. 7 minutes, 2 seconds remain in the 3rd quarter. The Rashard Mendenhall touchdown, his 2nd of the season, makes it a 10-7 Houston lead. 7:02 to play in the 3rd quarter. Welcome back to Reliant Stadium. There is the Pittsburgh scoring drive, and on their last 2 possessions now, Ben Roethlisberger has gone 10 of 14 throwing for 133 yards.
2 touchdown drives in this game. The Texans on the first drive of the game. The Steelers the first drive of the second half.
Manning will not run this out of the end zone. So the Texans will start from their own 20-yard line, and I'm sure Gary Kubiak interested in seeing just how his Texans team is going to react to that touchdown. Back in Houston, the Steelers go on defense. And Arian Foster gets maybe a yard. This Steeler defense came onto the field without James Harrison, whom we do not see on the sideline. He left the game late in the first half and has not returned.
Jason Worlds is taking his place at outside linebacker. So, with the injuries in this game so far have claimed a couple very high-profile players.
That snap for Houston, by the way, their first offensive snap since 2.5 minutes gone in the 2nd quarter. Schaub, screen to Foster. Shakes a tackle. In the end, only picks up a couple of yards.
Well, he got away from Lamar Woodley, but Woodley chased him so far to the sidelines that by the time he was able to cut back upfield, the Steelers defense had convened at that spot. William Gay ends up making the tackle, but that was Lamar Woodley that strung it out.
So Matt Schaub now looking at a 3rd and 8. off the fingertips of Arian Foster.
Oh, and that is just an easy pitch and catch. And the ball, I don't know if it just got away from Matt, but it's a little high. Normally Arian Foster would catch that. And that was very fortunate that didn't end up being an interception. But that should have been a pretty easy completion.
Antonio Brown and Emmanuel Sanders deep for the Steelers. At the 27, it's Sanders. Tripped up at the 35-yard line by James Casey. 5:24 to play. Third quarter. 10-7. Houston. .524 to play in the third. And the Houston defense, much to the chagrin of Gary Kubiak, is back on the field, Dan.
Yes, and it's, again, this is a team that is still struggling to learn how to win, how to close the deal against a team from Pittsburgh that knows how to win.
This is Isaac Redmond, and Redmond with running room across midfield and into Houston territory at the 45-yard line.
And during the commercial break, Gary Kubiak got his offense over there, and he laid into him. You don't see Gary Kubiak very often get as angry as he is. Look at him. Look how demonstrative he is being. He's telling them, here Pittsburgh just puts together a long drive, gets back into this ball game. The worst possible thing we can do is do a 3-and-out and get it right back to him, and that's exactly what they did.
Redmond again.
Well, Pittsburgh is telling us that James Harrison is having a problem with his right eye. We talked about that earlier, that he was having trouble keeping it open, and his return is questionable. If we hear anything else, we'll pass it on. We're still waiting on Andre Johnson. They said he's questionable, but I just got to wonder with that hamstring injury if there's... it sure doesn't look like the type of injury. If he would run out here on this field, this stadium would go bananas. I'm not looking for it.
2nd and 4. And Redmond pinballing his way until Tim Jamison makes the stop at about the 37.5.
Nice stick there by Jamison. A good pop, and then he wrapped up as he tried to spin out of there. Well, can the Texans defense make a stand right here? This would be critical.
Huge 3rd and 2. Redmond. First down to the 32-yard line.
And look at the emotion that the Steelers are playing with right now. They weathered the storm early. We talked about the fact that at halftime they could have been trailing by so much more. They're pros, they know it, and now they're the ones that have turned the emotional card on the Texans. They're the ones that are playing with all sorts of passion right now.
Moore in the backfield. Moore right up the middle. Inside the 20-yard line, and another red zone trip for the Steelers.
Well, it's all about the second half for the Houston Texans. And take a look at this hole. Boy, nicely done. Kimoyatu comes around the corner, gets a nice block. And now it's the Texans' turn to get gashed. They were doing it to the Steelers in the first half. Steelers have turned it around.
First down at the 17. They'll keep it on the ground, and we get a penalty marker. And it'll be a false start on the Steelers.
False start. Offense, number 21. 5-yard penalty, so first down.
Well, that's Moeldy Moore, the running back, who just seems to play in big situations for the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger told us his nickname, the Creeper. because he just creeps up on you. You don't even know he's in the game, and then all of a sudden he makes the big plays, which is what he did last week in their game against the Colts.
Now, I know you appreciate this, Dan, and the Steelers have taken this game over on the ground.
Yes, they have.
And we'll get a timeout. Pittsburgh uses its second here in the half. In support of breast cancer awareness, the Texans sponsored a Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure yesterday. Today, Texans coin toss honorees were Wade Phillips' wife Debbie, Janice McNair, wife of owner Robert McNair, both breast cancer survivors. During the month of October, the Texans will visit Methodist Hospital to offer spa services to breast cancer patients undergoing treatment.
That Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure has become so huge around the country. I know in St. Louis they get between 50 and 60,000 participants.
Saw James Harrison back on the Pittsburgh sideline, but not in the game. End around. Antonio Brown down the sideline and knocked out of bounds by D'Amico Ryan.
Well, James Harrison, at least he's keeping his right eye open. He was having difficulty keeping it open earlier. They're just tracking his eye movement to see if he has control over it. And you know, it takes something pretty major to keep James Harrison out of a football game. And it was in the first half when Dwayne Brown, the tackle, came around the corner and his helmet and Harrison's face mask had a pretty violent collision.
2nd and 7. Another one on the ground. Moelde Moore trying to turn the corner. Out of bounds just inside the 10.
There goes the creeper. He gets, again, it just seems when you really need a big play, Moelde Moore, his whole career, has been coming around with it. Look at this. He's got David Johnson, the tight end, who gets a good block on Cushing and seals it off. You wouldn't think that Moore's got the kind of speed to get around the corner like that.
Now, a 3rd and 2. Since Andre Johnson left the game, Pittsburgh has been dominant.
And 32 yards of total offense for the Texans.
Isaac Redmond in the backfield. Redmond stacked up at the 8. And that'll look to be about a yard short of a first down.
You got to keep in mind, though, that Houston really should be leading 17-7 right now. They should be enjoying a 10-point lead instead of a 3-point lead on that last play of the first half.
Mike Tomlin ran all the way down the sideline to see where that ball was spotted before he waved his field goal unit onto the field.
No lack of energy there. You know, it's amazing, Mike Tomlin, he's in his 5th year now coaching the Steelers. He's still 39. He's still 39 years old. He won't be 40 till next spring.
Before this field goal is launched, we run out of time in 3rd quarter. We said at the top of the day, Houston fans wondering which of their teams is going to show up. We're going to find out in the 4th quarter. That's the end of 3. We're coming back after this message and a word from your local station. As we welcome you back to Houston, along with our producer Mark Wolf, our director Bob Fishman, Greg Gumbel, Dan Deerdorf, and the rest of our CBS Sports crew, as we start the 4th quarter. Houston with a 10-7 lead, and the Steelers lining up for a 26-yard field goal attempt that would tie the game. Sweezen had one block earlier, and that was a whole different adventure. For the tie. And we're even at 10.
Well, we're going to learn. We already know about the Steelers. They're the AFC champions, the defending champions, a team that is battle-tested. We're going to learn an awful lot about the Houston Texans in the next 14 minutes and 57 seconds. And this is why. Check out their scoring differential, how well they play in the first half, and how in the second half it is a completely different story. And yes, they have a 2-1 record. The cynics will say, well, those were 2 nice wins. By the way, the two teams you beat are a collective 0-6. Indianapolis without Peyton Manning and a Miami Dolphin team that is 0-3.
And they'll feel that it was a real telltale fourth quarter in New Orleans last week.
Even though they played the Saints, a really good team, they played them hard. This is a league that is only about winning. And there's Bob McNair in the middle. And, you know, he's looking at a tied scoreboard. But this is one uneasy stadium right now. This is a fan base that doesn't have confidence in this team's ability to finish.
Daniel Manning looking for the run back, and he will take it out of the end zone. And he'll come up about the 15-yard line while we have a moment. Well, Matt Schaub and the offense have to go to work now, and not just 3 and out either. Matt Schaub has to show he can do it on offense late in the game. About 3 yards for Arian Foster.
Greg, there was a time in the second quarter where the Texans had run 38 plays and Pittsburgh had run 11. Okay, that's quite an imbalance. Right now, the Texans have run 42 plays. The Steelers have run 41. And there's James Harrison back out on the field. Good news for Pittsburgh. And again, when Andre Johnson left the game, it has been a complete, almost shutdown by the Texans.
Foster again. To the 19.
Aaron Smith again.
A complete turnaround.
Well, and I just talked about the imbalance of plays in the first half, and that's how Pittsburgh has gotten back in it in that regard. They've had the football the whole second half.
We are told Rashard Mendenhall with a hamstring issue on the sideline. His return is questionable for the Steelers. Meanwhile, 3rd and 6 for Schaub and the Texans. Over the middle. Picked off the grass by Owen Daniels. And it is a catch for a first down.
Geez, and I don't know if Matt Schaub, Daniels was so open if he intentionally took that much off of it. But wow, he made that a whole tougher completion than it should have been. Look how underthrown that ball is. What a tremendous job by Owen Daniels of going down and grabbing that ball. And keep in mind, it can touch the ground as long as it's under his control.
Schaub with time. Throwing. Got his man, Daniels. 29-yard pickup into Pittsburgh territory.
Owen Daniels is healthy. Last year he was bothered most of the season with a hamstring. Missed 5 games, but he is such a complete football player at the tight end position. And while Matt made him work hard for the last pass, he put that one right on his hands. That's a perfect pass from Matt Schaub to Owen Daniels.
Now from the Steeler 42. Foster. Still on his feet. A race to the end zone. 10, 5, touchdown.
And the block that made that happen was Owen Daniels. When Arian Foster cuts it back, he needs an edge block, and there's Daniels right there, 81. And then Troy Polamalu can't make the tackle. Polamalu ends up going over the top of his own teammate. And what vision and a cutback by Arian Foster.
141 yards rushing on the day.
Not many teams have ever needed a drive like the Texans needed that one.
Rackers for the extra point. And Houston comes right back for a 17-10 lead.
Look at this cutback. Arian Foster, that hamstring is just fine. Thank you very much. The Texans are back.
On the right, if this game comes down to a war of wills, those are two strong-willed guys right there.
Yes, they are. Polamalu a little frustrated that he had a shot at Arian Foster and wasn't able to get it. No panic in Dick LeBeau, but I'll guarantee you his blood pressure elevated a little bit on that run. He didn't see that coming.
Houston back on top, 17-10. Line drive kick, bounces at the 5. Antonio Brown going to bring it out of the end zone. Takes a hit and goes down at about the 18-yard line. Let's go back to the touchdown.
Yeah, I talked about Owen Daniels and the block that he's going to make. Here he is right here. Watch him come in and get this block. But you know what? Two unblocked Steelers on that side of the football. Lamar Woodley and Troy Polamalu. They're both there to make a play. Woodley's late coming back in. And Polamalu takes a bad angle and ends up getting tripped up by Woodley. I'm not sure. I think Troy would like to have that angle back.
So let's see how the Steelers answer from their own 17. Mendenhall still on the sideline. Isaac Redmond in the backfield. Redmond across the 20. Close to the 25.
Take a look at that. A 42-yard touchdown on the ground hasn't happened to the Steelers since back in '06. That's how tough it has been historically these last 5 years to run on this Pittsburgh team.
2nd and 2. Play fake. Roethlisberger under pressure. Penalty marker down. And he is sacked back at about the 17.
Well, that'll be declined.
Holding. Offense, number 53. That penalty is declined. Brings up 3rd down.
Marquise Pouncey guilty of the hold.
And again, this is an offensive line that is being held together by Band-Aids and duct tape.
3rd and 9.
And being on the road only makes it tougher. As you can tell by our shaking camera.
Roethlisberger dancing and looking. Still on his feet, throws over the middle. Oh, what a catch, and it's incomplete.
Well, Hines Ward, he couldn't hold on, but what a play by Ben Roethlisberger. Oh, are you kidding me that he can stay alive and then deliver a throw of this caliber? I mean, look at this. And then look at the velocity on that football, and what a hit by Jason Allen. Right into the back of Hines Ward, and out the football comes.
Jacoby Jones looking to return this one from the 25. 35. Back to the 40. Before Curtis Brown makes the tackle. 55-yard punt, 13-yard return. Things are getting a little tough as we wind down the 4th quarter. The Houston Texans had a 10-minute, 55-second drive to start this game. They would be delighted to take that kind of time off the clock here. Arian Foster tripped up by Polamalu.
Not many players in this game anticipate the snap count quite like Troy Polamalu. He times it out so well. There he is. He is across the line of scrimmage. I mean, seriously, coming off the edge, Arian Foster can't even get back to the line of scrimmage, going off guard. Now that takes some timing. Matt Schaub has got to change up a little bit on the snap counts. Don't let these guys get a free run and time like that.
on 2nd and 12. It's Foster again, trying to turn the corner and bumped out of bounds just over the 40-yard line. With that, we take you back once again to the NFL Today in New York. JB.
Greg, I was going to ask Shannon to get off Romo's case, but
Well, the best offense Detroit had all day has been Tony Romo. Unfortunately, he plays for the Cowboys, JB. But this is a great interception by Chris Houston. 56 yards, INT, and the Lions are back in this ball game. 27-17, the boys.
3:37 left in the third. Back to Greg Gumbel. Dan Deerdorf.
Guys, Dan and I have said since we saw those Lions in the preseason, if anybody didn't think that they were going to be for real this year, they were kidding themselves.
A lot of good young talent.
3rd and 9. Shaw sets up the screen. Foster. And he's brought down by Troy Polamalu.
Well, that long drive you talked about, Greg, did not materialize for Houston. Again, just floating. Covered a lot of ground. He's actually trying to leap over the top and get to that football. Look at him try to strip that away from Arian Foster.
Brown and Sanders deep for the punt.
Making the tackle wasn't just enough. Try to force a turnover.
Fair catch called for by Antonio Brown and made at about the 10.5-yard line. 8:21 to play in the 4th quarter. Houston by a touchdown. A reminder, it's doubleheader day here on CBS. Coming up next, the Denver Broncos at Green Bay to meet the Packers. New England out in Oakland against the Raiders. Miami out in San Diego against the Chargers. And there is Andre Johnson not in uniform, talking on the sideline. This is Llewellyn Moore. And Moore comes up short at 10, courtesy of Mario Williams. There is Andre, and boy, what a loss that would be if he misses any extensive time on offense for Houston.
But that's good news. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't know everything that's wrong with him, but that's a positive that he's walking around on the sidelines. You hope that it's not catastrophic in terms of some ligament or something like that. It's a hamstring, we're being told. Hamstrings do eventually heal.
2nd and 10. Roethlisberger, far side of the field, got his man back shoulder again to Antonio Brown.
And Antonio Brown versus Jason Allen. We've been seeing this drama play out here this afternoon. Actually, pretty darn good coverage by Jason Allen, but it's just a superior throw by Ben and great awareness by Antonio Brown, working back, realizing it's coming back shoulder. So hard to defend that throw when it's thrown well.
Remember, Jason Allen starting today in place of injured Kareem Jackson. 1st down now from the 26. 7:15 to play in the 4th. Pass to the far side again. And again, Antonio Brown pulls it in. No, incomplete.
He was working hard. He was working hard to sell it, curling up in the fetal position and rolling over a couple times. But the ball, he actually sat on it. And it was a little low. There's Mario Williams coming up against the rookie. Roethlisberger down. And it's Antonio Smith, the real workhorse of this defensive line for Houston. I mean to tell you what, Antonio Smith is a grinder. He's number 94 working right in the middle. He gets a good rip on Pouncey. He goes right through the second-year center. There he is right on the nose. Look at that rip with that right arm. And look at him dig up there and get to Roethlisberger.
4 sacks on the season for Antonio Smith.
Oh, he is a workhorse.
Play clock down to 3, down to 2, down to 1. Who's going to start? You bet. Trey Essex, the left tackle.
Well, you know, the Steelers have already burned 2 timeouts.
Offense, 79. 5-yard penalty, still 3rd down.
You know, when you're trailing, you really like to have some timeouts at your disposal, and they're down to only one.
Six and a half to play. Third and 21. Roethlisberger needs the 36-yard line for a first down. Under pressure, shakes it off, no! Down at the 8-yard line, Mario Williams again.
Well, again, he's working against Marcus Gilbert, the rookie right tackle, and on the road against a superior talent. Coming from the right, there comes Mario Williams, and I'll tell you what, look how he has nothing but a jersey, but then goes back in. He knows that's not enough on Ben. Look at him fight. That is great athletic ability. And how's Charlie Casserly looking with that draft choice, taking Mario Williams number one?
Jacoby Jones from the 32. Knocked down at about the 34. A patchwork offensive line has allowed Ben Roethlisberger to be sacked 5 times today. Houston by 7. And just a reminder, aerial coverage of today's game provided by MetLife. Arian Foster in the backfield. Under 5.5 to play. Foster to about the 38. Lamar Woodley makes the stop.
Well, the Texans have an opportunity, it's in their own hands, to put an exclamation point on this thing and finish. And again, you hate to just keep belaboring the point, but when you've had as many fourth quarter failures as they have had, until you overcome it and until you beat a good quality football team by outplaying them in the fourth quarter, that reputation is going to darken.
Foster again. And again, it's worth repeating. Earlier in this game, Ben Tate had a problem with a groin injury, and as you mentioned, Arian Foster is on a pitch count that because of that has probably now gone out the window, Dan.
Well, yeah, that's gone out. That you got to do what you got to do. That was his 27th carry. And obviously, very obviously, a very big third down conversion facing the Texans.
147 yards rushing today for Arian Foster. 3rd and 6. Play clock down to 2 and 1. And they take a timeout. So Houston uses its first timeout. Here in the second half, they have 2 remaining. While we have a moment, let's remind you, keep up with the NFL when you're on the go. The NFL's mobile apps are all new for the 2011 season. Go to NFL.com/mobile to learn more. Shows how the nature of football games can change, Dan. One of the things that we were looking forward to was the matchup of Andre Johnson against Ike Taylor,
yes,
the fine cornerback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That hasn't materialized, but it's changed the aspect of this game in many ways.
Well, and now on a critical third down conversion, again, without Andre Johnson in the mix, you know darn well that, and there's Ike Taylor, but you know darn well that Andre Johnson would figure prominently into this conversion. Now, Owen Daniels has been playing a big part offensively. He's become kind of Sharp's go-to guy since Johnson went out.
Big 3rd and 6. Shaw gonna go deep down this sideline. It is incomplete. Tipped away by Keenan Lewis. And the pass intended for Jacoby Jones.
Well, they go for everything on this one, but the Steelers, give them credit. That was outstanding coverage. Lewis just with him stride for stride with Jones. He sees the football. He plays the football, gets his hand up there, That was really nicely done by the young corner.
Now Brett Hartman to kick it away to Antonio Brown. Brown on the run at his own 20. 40. 45. Midfield.
Boy, they needed a big play, and they got it. They got great field position, and Big Ben is going to get the start in the really nice spotting on the field, but he's had a tough day. He has been under duress almost the entire afternoon. Mario Williams in particular has been a thorn in his side, and you can see sometimes more than 4 or 5 times the pocket has just completely disintegrated. That was the last sack by Mario Williams. But geez, in his position to get the start at the 48-yard line. Wow.
33-yard punt return has set the Steelers up at the Houston 48. 3:33 on the clock. Roethlisberger on the quick slant, incomplete. Intended for Hines Ward. Let's run back to New York once again. JB and Shannon.
Breaking news. Lions, Calvin Johnson is pretty good, Shannon.
They call him Megatron, and the Cowboys does not have an Optimus Prime, so he goes unchecked. 23 yards, pulls it down. We got a ball game. The boys, 30-23.
As Boomer said, he did it in rush hour traffic. Greg and Dan.
You know, that Calvin Johnson, there aren't many teams that have an answer for him.
No.
2nd and 10. Roethlisberger under pressure. And look at him move to the 45.
Sometimes you just marvel at Ben Roethlisberger's just raw athleticism and his awareness of everything going on around him. All right, there's Mario Williams working. Now they're blocking him with a tight end. Johnson trying to, you know, that can only last so long. But again, look at Ben, his fighting to stay alive. Mike Wallace is calling for it, but I'm sorry, your quarterback is having big issues back there.
3rd and 7. Almost intercepted. Troy Nolan stepped in front of the intended receiver, and it went right through his hands. It looked like
it was up in the air, but Nolan got both hands. He got both hands on the football. There he comes forward there. Man, oh man, oh man. You come down with that thing and you are putting your team in a great spot.
And the Steelers are going to go for it here on 4th down.
Well, with only 1 timeout left, they don't have a choice.
Roethlisberger tipped at the line of scrimmage, incomplete. Connor Barwin got a hand on it.
Well, the very first thing we talked about at the top of the telecast today was this Steelers offensive line. And given the fact that 2 starters were out, were they going to be able to protect Ben Roethlisberger and run the football? And when they really needed to give their quarterback time to throw, his pocket disintegrated on him time after time.
The Steelers have 1 timeout remaining. They'll also get a timeout at the 2-minute warning. Foster. And if they're smart, that'll take them to the 2 minutes. No, Pittsburgh stops it with a timeout.
Yeah, they'll stop it right now. They'll burn their final timeout. And again, Ben just under pressure nearly the entire day.
Dan, say this for the Houston Texans. After they took the early lead, they got punched in the mouth and they came back and punched back.
Yeah, they did. And again, now this game's not over. This game is not a done deal. If they don't get a first down, Pittsburgh's going to get the ball back. So Not putting this one in the old W column yet, but you're right. They faced some adversity here in the second half, and they did fight back. Whether it was enough, we'll see. I like their position, but this game is not over.
Schaub with a 2nd and 8 at his own 46. Foster to the 48-yard line. Foster up to 150 yards rushing on the day.
And as we look at Troy Polamalu, we just got to revisit the fact that the Steelers using those 2 timeouts prior to having them in the bank at this stage of the game. This is really critical right now that they don't have them.
2 minutes to play here in Houston. The Texans looking at a 3-1 start. If they can hold off the Steelers for the final 2 minutes. We're coming back to Reliant Stadium right after this. The Steelers have not specialized in creating turnovers so far this young season.
And very unusual. They're one of the more opportunistic defenses of the last 20 years. Yeah, they wish Andre Johnson was in this game right now.
3rd and 6. Foster to the 46, a yard short of the first down.
He stretched out as far as he could. Well, the Steelers are going to get the ball back with over a minute to play. No timeout. And that would have been it's
no punting unit on the field either.
Well, they'll run this play clock all the way down.
Hey, one thing Houston stopped doing in the second half was shooting themselves in the foot with penalties. 8 penalties in the first half. They've committed none here in the second.
Would Gary go for it here? Run the risk of turning it over at the Steelers' own 46?
Matt Schaub earns a timeout.
I don't see how you could take that chance. It'd be gutsy. It'd be gutsy, but a little foolhardy.
Just a reminder, more coming your way here on CBS once we wind down. Doubleheader day, the Broncos and the Packers, the Patriots and the Raiders, the Miami Dolphins and the San Diego Chargers still to come here on CBS. Arian Foster, 30 carries, 155 yards and a touchdown today.
And here comes the punting unit out onto the field. Now, if you don't do anything, don't kick it to Antonio Brown. Angle this thing to the sidelines, kick it out of bounds. Mr. Hartman, if you can, this would be a nice time to do it.
The rookie out of Central Michigan. Straight ahead. Tries to drop it inside, and it is just going to be killed at the 1-yard line.
Oh, what a play by Bryce McCain. First of all, a fantastic punt by Hartman, but what a job by Bryce McCain.
45-yard punt.
Now when Hartman's not going for maximum distance, you see how he drops the nose of the football down? And this, look at McCain elevate from the field of play, and before he comes down and lands in the end zone, he pushes the ball back into the field of play.
1:02 on the clock, 1 timeout remaining for Houston.
Well, Pittsburgh has none.
Roethlisberger out of the end zone, throw, intercepted, picked off by Jonathan Joseph to the 5. Touchdown. There is a penalty marker down in the end zone.
Ben Roethlisberger is still on his knees.
Prior to the interception, personal foul, roughing the passer, defense number 99. 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
Just when we say that Houston stopped shooting themselves in the foot, J.J. Watt guilty of this foul.
This is the second Houston Texans. Oh, and he went low. Oh, he ends up down on the knee of, and this is the second time this year that Ben has taken a potentially crippling shot on his lower leg. You just cannot hit a quarterback below the waist like that. That's the second Houston Texans touchdown of the day taken off the scoreboard by a penalty.
First down now at the 16. 51 seconds to play. Roethlisberger shakes a tackle, throws. That's complete to Brown. And Brown is out of bounds at about the 28-yard line.
And Ben is limping noticeably, and yet look at his ability to evade that rush.
A reminder coming up, time permitting after the game, the NFL Today update presented by Verizon. JB, Dan, Shannon, Boomer, and Coach Cower with all the latest NFL scores and highlights.
Ben Roethlisberger could have played this game when they were wearing leather helmets, no face masks. I mean, this guy is a throwback.
First down from the 28. Under pressure, got rid of it to Redmond. Redmond still on his feet.
Oh, the Texans just missing tackle after tackle.
First down to the 40 after the 12-yard pickup.
Ben wants to get up and spike the ball.
25 seconds and counting. And Roethlisberger spikes it and stops the clock with 19 seconds to play.
Well, Wade Phillips, you need to tell every one of your defensive backs about number 17. And no matter what happens, you cannot let Mike Wallace get on top of you.
He has had a big season so far.
And it's pretty much guaranteed there'll be double coverage, but I've seen this guy beat double coverage before. Ask the Colts.
Roethlisberger deep. Intercepted at the 10 by Jason Allen. No flags.
Well, Antonio Brown and Jason Allen have been going at it all day. And when he has to, and Ben had no choice. I mean, in that situation, he's got to take a chance. He had to throw it to Brown even though Allen had good coverage. And again, Brown's being bracketed as well. And that the ball just a little overthrown, but nice play, Jason Allen.
Texans go into their win the game formation.
Well, all of a sudden there are more people in Houston that believe.
Our final score, Houston 17, Pittsburgh 10. For Dan Deerdorf, the rest of our CBS Sports crew, Greg Gumbel saying so long from Houston. Coming up, doubleheader action on CBS. But next, it's the NFL Today update presented by Verizon. We'll take you to New York for all the scores and highlights after this.